A surpriser in disguise, standing in my way. Why, oh why? Always asking why. Needs to know what's going on. Under pressure, proving his existence, losing confidence, filling holes with anything but consciousness about himself. Greed is taking over for spectacular events. Information for the mind is stirring to the body.
Welcome to the Cosmic Reality Radio Show, where our hearts are our masters. Your hosts are Nancy L. Hopkins and Walt Silva. Producing the show is Colleen Kelly. The theme song is called Disturbance and is written and performed by Renate Jet and Jet Music. You are listening to Wolf Spirit Radio at wolfspiritradio.com.
Emotionally undercover for a lover overdressed. The cycle is created long before you start to think that the blink, it's your decision what you do. No clue for the Foo Fighters.
And you are live.
Hello, everybody out there. This is Nancy Hopkins from Cosmic Reality Radio Show. It's June 14th. Walt Silva is my co-host. He's here with me with our producer, Colleen Kelly. And I wasn't going to have a guest on tonight, but a guest came to the house, and she's sitting beside me, Stephanie Dietz. And as she says, she's not really a guest, she's family. So, hi, Walt.
Hey there, Nancy. How you doing, girls?
Oh, we're doing okay.
We're doing good. Hi, Walt. Hi, Colleen.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Colleen, you there?
I'm here. Hi. No, I'm not. Hi, but hello.
Oh, Lordy. Of course, you know, I'm sure all of you guys know that Walt and myself and Stephanie, came together to create Cosmic Reality Shungite Inc., which is a non-profit organization and is a, what do they call it?
501c3, Florida non-for-profit corporation.
Right. And, so thank God the Gaia brought the three of us together because we each have our own different kind of like areas where we can do it. Walt makes all of the resin devices, the S4, the stickers. Him and his mom put together the stickers for us. Everything we make is handmade. So we've got that production capability through Walt and his mom, Elsa. And then I run the website and the store and get ship it out to the people and all that sort of thing. But Stephanie goes out and plays in the public. And playing in the public means she gets to interface with a whole lot of different types of people, but also groups. And what happened was that she got invited by somebody that belongs to what we would call the Edgar Cayce Foundation. It's actually the Association for Research and Enlightenment that Edgar put together in 1931 as a non-profit organization. And they have a group. We're up in Boca area. So Steph goes and gets involved with that group. So we're going to tell you the story about that, but we also felt it was important to talk about Edgar Cayce because most of us old people sort of grew up with him. I mean, he was one of the first people that I ever really studied that gave you a tremendous overview of so many different subject areas. Now, who he was is, it was just, his family was a family of poor people living in Kentucky, very close to Hopkinsville, Kentucky. And when he was a kid, he would see things and, nature spirits and, he wasn't very good at school though. And so his dad kind of got on his case, like, there's something wrong with you and, I'm not going to put up with this. And one day he was, the father, again, having been told by the school that the son is doing badly, says, to the son, all right, you sit here, we're going to have some mathematics and I'm going to teach it to you and we're going to, and he actually hit him a couple of times because he was so frustrated for the fact that Edgar couldn't seemingly get it. So all of a sudden Edgar gets this image and voice in his head saying, just take a break and, take a little nap. And so he tells his dad, look, I just think I'm so tired, can I just take a break? And so he does, and they have him put his head on the math book. And he falls asleep. He's got his head on the math book, he falls asleep, and when he wakes up and the father comes back, he knows every answer. So the father hit him because he thought, Edgar's playing games with me, right? But after that, that's the way that Edgar went through school. He'd get the textbook and he'd fall asleep on it. And when he woke up, he had all the information, and he went from being, this dumb kid to being the best student in the school, and his father was very, very, proud of him. But what happened was he had some kind of a medical thing that he hit his head. So as a kid, he hit his head, and he was, I think there was a hypnotherapist or somebody, but they put him into sort of like a trance situation, and this kid was able to say, look, if this body just goes and does this, it's going to be fine. And they actually followed what the kid said to him, and boom, the next day he was fine, and he didn't have a reoccurrence of it. But it didn't stay with him until, much later in life when he was actually at that point working as a photographer, a young man, and he lost his voice. He had laryngitis. Now, he went into photography because the job he had before that was salesman, and he did start having problems with his throat. And so then he goes into photography, but then he has this really, bad case of laryngitis, and there happened to be a hypnotist in the town. Because hypnotism, now we're talking back at the turn of the century, the 1900s, and hypnotism was an accepted way of trying to deal with a lot of phobias, even back then. It was pushed under by when the American Medical Association, got its act together and started controlling everything. Things like hypnotism and particularly homeopathy was, thrown out of the medical arena, even though they had been accepted in many cases. But so there was a hypnotist there, and they hypnotized him, and again, he gave the remedy for his own healing. And that was when people started to take note of him, and that's when he started to, what he would do is he would lay down and he would go into a self-induced trance, and then he would picture the individual or the situation, and then he would do a reading on it, but he never remembered anything he said. Now, I just found out today, going back over some of the information, was that before they ever started recording his readings, which that's what they became called as readings, and he's got 14,000 of those in the Virginia library. But before that, he had already done over 8,000 of them that were never recorded. So, Walt, Steph, Colleen, I'm just giving the basics of the guy. He died in 1945. He'd done a whole bunch of predictions, but, what do you know about him? What did he mean to you? Any of you?
Well, for me, I think my whole interest into psychics and metaphysical things and spiritual, other than religion, came from a book I read about him when I was, 14 maybe. Some of Dad's books. And I was totally awed by his story and his abilities, and that it was he, the sleeping prophet, is what he was called. Just amazed me. How can people learn while being asleep with the book under their head? Was like, wow, that's just amazing. And I never thought of it as, oh, that's impossibility or that's bull or whatever. It was that it is possible. Here's this man who, even though he was very religious, was doing these things that, of course, the church taught and still does, were the works of the devil, so to speak, and that he would do all of these health readings for people, and the remedies or the cures were things like tar oil or something like that. Basically, it was a tar, and turpentine and things like that actually worked, and then would do life readings for people and then not remember anything that he had said. So I was quite taken with that, and I think that's what started my whole journey into learning more about all this. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, that's how I responded to it too. But as a kid, I remembered my past lifetimes, and when I was 12 years old, I was, realized nobody else around me remembered their past lifetimes. I thought, well, maybe it's just imagination. So he also confirmed for me that, no, I wasn't crazy. It wasn't my imagination. I was actually remembering. So from that standpoint, he was, I don't remember anybody else talking about reincarnation except him. Even though I was reading books on different subjects. It still wasn't something that was, kind of accepted. So, Walt, because you would have been in Argentina did you run into Edgar? I mean, was he influential in your life or not?
I remember reading about him, but nothing much in depth other than what you described of the man going into self-induced trance and having, somebody would take notes, somebody would record the session, and people would consult him on healings and personal problems and health problems and stuff like that. When I learned more of him was when I came to the U.S., and then in 2004 when Dr. Joseph Costa of the San Diego Institute of Thought came to do the 15-step workshop. He did speak about Cayce because he did work there at the ARE. I forget the year. He had to go there, and he knew Cayce not physically when Dr. Costa was a child. He knew Cayce, his other persona, because through Dr. Costa, I think it was also documented in the Law of One books. Cayce is the reincarnation of a very old Egyptian high priest by the name of Ra-Ta. He was the reincarnation of that being. And when Dr. Costa was a small child, he could see his guides. He thought as a little kid, he would go to bed and the house was so full of people, he thought it was his uncles coming in at night to see him in his room, and it wasn't. Nobody could see them, only him, because they were his spiritual guides. So he must have been small, like 4 or 5 years old, and he remembers his guides taking him to a special place to meet someone. And when they got there, one of his guides is walking him by the hand, and they're in this particular space, and there are 3 men at a distance talking to each other, like in a semicircle. And one of the men looks sideways at him and says, "No, this kid is not going to work." And he got angry at that, like a little kid, because as a little kid, he always figured that he could do whatever job his guides gave him to do. Well, that man that said that must have been in a spiritual plane or something. That was Ra-Ta, the being that incarnated as Edgar Cayce. So I think it was in 2002 or 2003, Dr. Costa gave a lecture at the ARE, and Cayce came to him and said, "I need you to let me use your body for a while, because I need to give a lecture to these people. So he spoke through Dr. Costa's voice, and later, Dr. Costa had to, he didn't give many details, but he said using a big quartz crystal, he had to do a job that Edgar requested of him. He had to walk around the whole campus while doing some kind of energy work, because at that time, he says the ARE was infiltrated by a dark entity. And when he did, that time that he did the lecture, he went into the director's office, and somehow the director, didn't want to accept anything that you're, that Edgar is speaking to you. And so they had a conversation about the whole thing. And it turns out that I don't think it was a coincidence, because there's no coincidence. The PA system was active, so the people in the lecture hall were actually listening to the conversation of these two men. And Dr. Costa knew nothing about this. It was later on.
It's likely that it would have been one of Edgar's sons. Depending
I don't know who was the director around that time.
Yeah, because I don't know what the time frame was, but I know that it was his sons that were the directors until they passed.
Oh.
Not sure how old the last one was. It could have been somebody else, but.
Yeah, I know a lady. She was one of Joe's students, I guess, and she was also a member of the ARE. But as time progressed, she visited them less and less, because she found them very close-minded. Like, for example, don't talk to them about spiritual guides. No, they don't want to hear that. Everything is Edgar this, Edgar that. There's nothing else in the universe. So I guess over time she started distancing herself from them, because she couldn't discuss anything. If it wasn't documented that Edgar said it, you couldn't talk about it. That's what it came down to. So I guess that's why Dr. Costa needed to do this clearing for them.
What happened over the PA? What was the conversation?
They had he didn't give the substance of the conversation, but it was about spiritual matters. And when the conversation ended, he left the office. Someone who had been in the auditorium, one among the people listening to it, stopped him and says, I really like what you said there. And Dr. Koch is saying, what are you talking about? He says, you don't know? The PA system was on. We all heard your exchange there. So that kind of took him by surprise. He had no idea that, because this director was very close-minded. He didn't want to know anything from anything. No, I don't believe that Edgar is speaking to you. And to all concerned, whatever he said was in perfect alignment to what Edgar had said in his life. So, did it happen? Did it not happen? I don't know. I wasn't there. But this is one of the stories that I heard. So, Dr. Costa was one source beyond, and the other thing that I knew about Cayce is from the Law of One. Don Elkins had questions of Ra regarding Edgar Cayce, and Ra confirmed that, yes, every time that Edgar would go into a trance, he was not channeling any entity other than his own higher self. He never contacted any entity other than himself. Nobody from another universe or another planet or anything like that.
So was he reading from the Akashic records?
No, they said that they were confirming that he channeled his own higher self. That's where all the information was coming from.
Wow. I'd never heard about him being a reincarnation. I have heard about David Wilcox being his reincarnation.
No, that was clarified by Dr. Costa as well. He said Edgar was in David for a short while. He did some work through David. But no, he says David is not a reincarnation of Edgar Cayce.
But you don't know what kind of work. It was just sort of general.
He didn't give any details. It must have been something to do with the investigations, because you see that David's specialty is investigating stuff and making connections. and putting the information together, creating a picture from all these apparently disconnected sources. You put them together and you create like a mosaic. So I don't know if it was part of investigative type work, but he says, yeah, he was in him for a while, but he's not the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce.
I think he started hearing that when David wrote the Synchronicity Key. That's when that came out, that he was the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce. I think that David stated that himself.
Well, if you see pictures of David and Edgar, they're very similar. And then people around David and people around Edgar, it's really kind of freaky to see how, close they look. You can see, it's spooky.
Yeah.
And Edgar did say that he was going to come back and gave a date, and David was born in and around that date. I mean, there was some other stuff, but,
well, there are people that have simultaneous incarnations, so
yeah.
Why would that be strange?
Well, no, Edgar died in 45. David certainly was in his, had to be in the 60s when he was born. So, no, but I just, I'm trying to process this concept, because if anybody has ever read anything about him, he talked about everything from earth changes to, spiritual soul guidance stuff. And that's all and details about certain people's lives and incarnations. He was getting that all from his higher self. He must have been connected to the God source itself.
Well, why not? Your higher self is 6-dimensional, so it's able, where we can only see the little square on the chessboard that we're standing on, the higher self can see the entire playing board. So why wouldn't it be able? It's the same way it's exactly the same way when people get attacked by demons or negative entities, and the negative entities, they're on the other side of the veil, so they have full access to all your crap. So that's what they do. They bring all your crap to the surface. You did this and you did this, and they torture you with all your Achilles heels, because they're on the other side. On the other side, all knowledge is accessible. It's on this side that we're in the dark, because we can't see past the veil.
Well, we can see past the veil.
We have to work at it.
We have to.
It's not like we can, just look around, go walk in the park, and then you're seeing the park, plus you're seeing the other side of the veil. You have to do work at it. Either you do some kind of trance work, or remote viewing, or shamanic journeying, I don't know, but it takes work.
But the children can see beyond the veil.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because it is training not to see it. That's what's so sad about it, is that I think that most kids are born just seeing. And, then they get talked out of it. And it is talked and taught right out of their realities until they can't see it anymore. Okay, so tell us a story about you meeting this person, because, he's saying that some people think that they've gotten dogmatic and that they're, strictly, if it isn't Edgar saying it, then it can't be true. Did you feel that? I mean,
no.
You haven't had that much of exposure to him, but.
Well, I've always resonated with him, and, my daughter goes to a Waldorf school with Rudolf Steiner, who was a philosopher and a prophet. So their works go together. So, there's people at my daughter's school who actually have study groups for Edgar Cayce. And I love to see the young people, because when I went to this conference, the median age is like 75, 80. It's so awesome to see it, but then you have the young people who already understand and know the knowledge and working with it. So, I heard about this conference, and they were going to have the speaker. His name is Robert Grant, and he was the author of the book, Edgar Cayce, the research on angels and unseen forces. He did all this research, wrote a book, so he was going to be our speaker. So I was very excited to go. This had nothing to do with Shungite. I was completely going for pleasure. And it turns into a Shungite event, which we'll get into. So we get to the conference, and Robert, unfortunately, got stuck on the airplane for 2 days. There was some sort of terrorist, I don't know what. Poor guy, 2 days in a plane, no food and water.
And now just understand this, because I think I would hurt somebody getting off this plane. Because if they're on the tarmac, that means that they can still use their electronic equipment. So all of these people that are using their phones and their Wi-Fi shit and the laptops and all of this are in a tin can that is reverberating with all of this electronics. They were cooking themselves. For 10 hours, he was in a microwave oven. Now they've done studies in France about the effect of one cell phone on a train. And they found that every place in the train was being irradiated by one telephone. So can you imagine what it's really like? Never mind they don't have any water and they don't have any drinks and they don't have any food and they're not where they're supposed to be. They're sitting there. I mean, this is absolutely inhumane and torturous. I was appalled. I thought there had been some kind of a law that said that they couldn't do it for more than 3 hours or something. But apparently not.
Apparently not. If they get stuck on the runway, they can't. The FAA says you can't go. So anyway, the conference ends up where we don't have a speaker. So we had somebody in the audience who was a psychic, and she came up and spoke about Edgar Cayce and did a lovely job. That afternoon.
What was her position? Did she work with Edgar as a spirit, or was it?
She channels Edgar.
Oh, really? Did she do that?
Well, everybody there. We said, when we found out Robert wasn't going to be there, we said, well, Edgar has this all lined up. What Edgar wants, Edgar gets. Whoever is meant to be here and who's going to speak and share a message, we all came together as a community. People paid a lot of money to come to this conference to see Mr. Grant speak, and it didn't turn out that way. So this psychic got on, and she was fantastic, telling her story and, channeling Edgar and the angels and the nature spirits.
Can you share any of that? Do you remember any of it, or what did you have to sort of be there?
Well, you kind of it's a long story, about how she got on her mission. But
no, but I mean the channeling. Did he come through? I mean, did you feel him? I mean, was she?
Well, yeah, we all felt him, and there would be lights would flicker and things would bang, and we knew he was there, and it was really cool. I really don't remember. It was pretty much an out of body experience for me. So I'm doing the best I can and explaining it. So,
no questions, please.
Right. So now Mr. Grant shows up, and after being, traveling for 2 days and being on the plane microwaved, he was just no life force energy, couldn't put together 2 words, and he had to step down. He went up there for 10 minutes and he just stepped down. So we all sent him, energy and light, and we said, all right, well, who's next? Anybody in the crowd want to speak? Well, I'm there with Shungite, and I just had some on me, and everywhere I go, people know what I do, and they just ask me, they see it on me, and they said, would you like to come up and talk about the rock? And I said, absolutely, because how Edgar Cayce really resonated with me, I always knew about him, but when I got on the Shungite mission, I saw something very profound about Edgar's prophecies, what he had said about Russia. And I will read this out loud as I read it to the crowd. Edgar said, through Russia comes the hope of the world, not in respect to what is sometimes termed communism, no, but freedom, that each man will live for his fellow man. The principle has been born there. It will take years for this to be crystallized, yet out of Russia comes again the hope of the world.
Crystallized.
So when we first started with Shungite, I remember telling this to Nancy. Someone came to me and said, whoa, what is this rock? Is this the rock that Edgar Cayce's been prophesizing about? And I was like, started doing my research, and I'm like, oh my God. Edgar Cayce did prophesize that Russia would be the hope of the world. And it was amazing because the guy who came on and spoke before me, he just strictly spoke on Edgar Cayce's knowledge, but mostly about the earth changes and the fall of Atlantis and how that all happened. They mess with the grid lines, the earth's frequencies, all about it, and the alkaline diet that we should all be on. So then I got up and I held the rock up and I said, Edgar Cayce prophesized this, but he didn't understand what we were going to do with these EMF, Wi-Fi frequencies and this fracking and all this stuff that was going to disturb the vibration of Mother Earth Gaia and our vibratory bodies. And this was the solution. So after I said that, the whole crowd resonated. And they said, yes. A couple people came up to me saying, I've been fascinated recently on Edgar's works with Russia and his prophecies. And apparently he had also prophesized about Putin, that he was going to stop the World War III. That was another prophecy.
Yeah, I saw a reference to it. I didn't get to read it though.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was just an honoring experience. I don't know. It was out of body after I talked about Shungite and, after that I can't tell you what happened, but everybody trampled me after to get the information. They wanted the Shungite. They were laughing. They said, we can't believe the way this turned out. What Edgar wants, Edgar gets. And it was just an amazing opportunity and just an honor to be there. I never thought that something like that would happen, that I would go up and speak in front of a crowd of over 100 people.
And they bought her out, which is why she's here today, restocking.
I mean, the little stock that I even had on me, they were going through my bag. I said, wait, I'm not allowed to be selling this stuff. They didn't care. They were trampling me, going through the stock. It was crazy.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so, the thing of it is that Edgar is, Walt, what do you think that he represents? I mean, nobody's ever done the things he's done. He's cured every known ailment, from cancer to, paralysis, as long as the people would follow his directions exactly. So he's exhibiting medical information. That's why, he actually got to be known, was because of the fact that he was making healings that, just weren't even possible without touching people. Just saying, go get this and do this. And some of the stuff was like really kind of bizarre. Castor oil is the one thing that everybody sort of knows about with the castor oil packs. And I can tell you from experiencing with these things that now castor oil is also called the hand of Christ. I'm not sure where it got that, but it has to be from the healing properties of it. And he would essentially, for many ailments, that you take a castor oil pack. And what that was that you basically, well, what I do is you take like a washcloth, and you put the castor oil right on the washcloth, and then I put it in a bag, a plastic bag, so that the oil doesn't go all over, and then you put it over the area, you're putting the oil on the cloth on your body, wherever the problem is, and it pulls out all these toxins, apparently, and then does something else. And I remember being out in the West, and it was so dry. I actually said to some people, I said, it's so dry here, my eyeballs are drying out. And they went into hysterics, laughing. And then that night on the television, they were getting warnings that your eyeballs were going to dry out because it was so dry, But it also was affecting my lungs. I felt like, oh my God, it was like scratchy. It was awful. And I just remembered the castor oil thing, and boy, I'll tell you, in the morning I felt fine, and it still terribly dry out, but it didn't, I kept using it, and it didn't have any, I didn't have any further effects. So I've used a lot of his, remedies over the years, and that's where he got his reputation, was from the healing. And yet, at the same time, he could talk about, and I talk about it in the book, Cosmic Reality, about the Prin Mountains, about the pyramids and what the pyramids were really about. And he said, he said they were 4,000 or 5,000 years old when they were still talking about, it's 40,000 years. It's something ridiculously longer than what they thought it was. And with the deterioration of the Sphinx, as they dug around and opened up the base of the Sphinx, they could actually see water that had deteriorated the surface, and that water had to have been like of a tropical nature to have done that to the structure of the Sphinx. So it is much older. I mean, he would make these prophecies that over the years they've come true. And last I was studying him, everything that they could point to that was prophetic and then, prove it was, Bimini. He said that Atlantis they'd find Atlantis, and then they found, the Bimini Road. And Bimini is actually an island just off the coast of where we are now, not too very far away. And it is, the mountaintop of one of the mountains on Atlantis. And so, when you go to Bimini, you're definitely touching Atlantis, because Atlantis, was all the islands in the Bahamas, all of that is just mountain ridges of the Atlantean, which was actually an island. It was a continent type of thing, and then it broke up into 5 islands, and then the islands were inundated with this crazy ass scheme that they had at the time. What do because it all goes back to Atlantis. He said that we were all incarnated from Atlantis, trying to make right what we made wrong there. And, anybody got any ideas about that? Atlantis?
So if we're coming back to fix Atlantis, how many times do we have to come back to fix 9/11?
Well, in 9/11, they didn't move the whole planet.
If we're coming back to fix something that happened countless thousands of years ago, you mean we have to come back for all of the stuff that happened after Atlantis? Man, what a deal.
Well, all I know is that every time I turn around, Atlantis is somewhere around there. And, I don't think I'll go there.
Well, the worst damage that came out of Atlantis is that's when the collective decision was made to make the mind accessible. You see that they didn't have so much, at the time of Atlantis, that there weren't no cemented belief systems concerning religion. What we today label as religion, that didn't happen. To them, it was, consciousness, the cult of, consciousness. So they did tons of experiments with consciousness and the mind. I mean, that was the expertise, that was their highest technology. So from the Tobias materials, I know that at that particular moment, at the time of Atlantis, I don't know if it happened toward the end or the middle or the beginning, I don't know when, because their history was incredibly long. But that's when the collective decision was made that the mind would be accessible. You see, the soul is not accessible. You cannot go in and penetrate and bother somebody's soul unless that person has a contract with you, and that's how people lose, soul fragments and stuff like that. It's not accessible. But the mind is. And that's what opened the door to all this mind control. That's why telepathy works, and, somebody can contact you mentally, and you have to have strict discipline with yourself to be able to block that if somebody wants to disturb you and you don't want that disturbance. But unfortunately, for the majority of the population, the mind is accessible. Otherwise, hypnotism wouldn't work, commercials wouldn't work. I was sharing with Stephanie earlier today on the Facebook chat, because we have a client in common. This lady is living in the island of Mauritius. So nobody in the island knows what Shungite is. And she has bought, Shungite pendants and other materials. And she wants to promote them, to get them to the people where she lives. And I shared with Stephanie something that happened when my father had the store. One of the things that was sold at the store was candy, different types of candy and confections and whatnot. And something new came out. My father bought 2 boxes of it, and he put it on the showcase right in front of people's faces, and he would tell them, something new came out, would you like to try it, blah, blah, blah. Nobody gave it a second thought. They sat there on the shelf for 2 weeks. Then the company that made this thing finally had I think it was 5 or 6 second spot on TV promoting, an animated thing promoting this candy. Next day, within half an hour, my father sold all of it. He had to order more boxes. Just because they saw it on TV, they rushed to the store to get it. So, what does that sound like to you?
Visual aids.
Organic robot programming. Sit in front of the TV, go buy it.
Well, my understanding is that they don't have a fear of the EMF over there, and so it's a hard sell.
Well, but they're surrounded by EMF. Everybody has cell phones, so.
But they don't know that they're in danger.
That's what needs to be conveyed.
Yeah, people just have to, tell them the story about the thermography.
Well, yeah, that's why I said visual aids, because, when we're out there doing the presentations, not everybody is energy sensitive and can feel this. So we said we need some visual aids to show the people. So one of our friends is a thermographer, and thermography is infrared digital imaging, usually for your breast area or other parts of your face, your thyroid, where you can find disease, but you're not going through a mammogram or anything like that.
You're seeing heat, correct?
You're seeing heat.
So if you've got a problem area that is like a precursor to cancer in your breast, they can actually see a heat signature long before it manifests in the 3D as a tumor.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So we have a friend that does that. So we said, can you come out and take pictures of us while we are on the cell phone, and then again with our cell phones protected by the S4 Shungite sticker. So what we saw today, and this will, we're going to be providing the visual images, but it was absolutely eye-opening when you can see this visually in the 3D form. So we did it with our model before with the phone to her ear, making a call, no Shungite on her body, no Shungite on the phone. Everything went red. Her crown chakra, her third eye, inside of her cheeks, her salivary glands, her thyroid, including her hand, all red imaging. That imaging should not be red. It should be blues and greens. And then we did it again. She put her Shungite pendant on, and she put her sticker on the phone, made the phone call. Amazing difference. Yes, a couple of red spots, but the phone was not, the hand, was not, red. It was blue. Nothing going on in the third eye, nothing going on in the ear. Right in the ear was all red, and that is the part where the research is showing the brain tumors. Straight through the ear. Whatever that gland is, I can never pronounce it.
Yeah, but the auditory gland.
Right. That's where it is. And so when you will see these, digital imaging pictures, you'll just be blown away, because we need to have these in our presentations to show them. You can't see it and feel it, but you can see the heat and the radiation. And the most, the worst part about it was, after she got off of the cell phone with no protection, 10 minutes later, I said, sit for 10 minutes and then let's take another digital imaging picture to see if your body is still being radiated. It was 10 minutes later, her body is still full of red. So these people are really walking around with no protection in Wi-Fi environments, on phones, literally being microwaved all day. I don't know what other word to use besides that.
It's microwave. It's low-level microwave.
Right. And she felt it immediately because she hasn't been without her Shungite on her phone in a year. So to go bare and take all that off, she got sick. She said, I feel this through my ear. She had to lay down afterwards. And as soon as she put her pendant back on and did her phone, I felt the spin. I got dizzy. And I felt her going clockwise again. It's amazing. It really is. The power of Shungite it's unbelievable. It's fascinating.
Well, we knew that the phones that normally would heat up if you used them for any length of time. Once you got the sticker on them, they stopped heating up. But to see that, because she showed me the pictures, and to see it, and to know that as I'm looking at it, I'm going, this is an adult brain.
Right.
You know, a kid doesn't even have the skull thickness to be able to ward off what an adult brains can. And I just couldn't even imagine what it was doing to a child.
That was the point. You know, we got angry. We did have to calm down because now we're really getting extra heated from it. Seeing that, it's like, wow, it's really in your face when you can see that. And we just, you know, anything we can do to get on the mission to wake people up. Because I'm going to say 6 out of 10 moms I meet have not even made the connection. They don't even understand what this is doing to their child's growing brain. That's why the work we're doing is so important, just to get them to start paying attention. I'm not even saying get Shungite, whatever. Just start paying attention. Limit your child's screen time.
Well, don't take them to the doctor to get a drug because they're hyperactive because they're in Wi-Fi all the time.
You know, when I was speaking at the Edgar Cayce conference, like I mentioned, they're 75, 80-year-old grandparents and great-grandparents. And after I told them the health effects of EMF Wi-Fi radiation, somebody raised their hand, very panicked. Well, what am I supposed to do? I can't take the iPad away from my grandson. He'll have a tantrum. I don't know what to do. And here's where I come in and I say, well, I blame the parents, period. Because now your kid can't even function without a device. What are you doing to this child? That's a problem. Big problem. That's
especially when it's radiating them all the time. I mean, it's like...
It's a drug addiction. The kids are addicted, and the parents will not take them away because the kids will go into a tantrum meltdown and can't even function.
Well, the parents might have to interact with the children.
It's that too, but I also believe the child's brain now and DNA has been mutated in a way that the child can no longer function and ground himself.
Yeah. Which
is the scariest part to me, because really the child probably cannot function without it. They need a detox. The acupuncturist that we work with, who's on the Shungite mission, and she taught us how to muscle test, and she says every single person is walking around with EMF poisoning in their muscles. She says these kids in school, their nervous systems are shutting down.
Wow.
She's doing, you know, acupuncture on them, detox, but she's telling the parents, you have to give them 2 weeks of a digital detox. This means no electronics around them at all, because their systems are now dependent. This is like a drug, period. You can't just take it away. They have to go little by little, and these are parents having to use extra modalities like acupuncture and different things like that.
Wow. Well, comments, Walt?
Oh, everything sounds right out there.
And wait, I'm sorry, I just want to ask you a question, Walt, because you're a man, so you can expound on this. You know, most of this that I'm seeing and these holistic professionals I deal with, these are all little boys who are really having these reactions and are more addicted and all of it. What do you think about that?
Well, do you think it's an accident? I don't think it's an accident at all. I mean, I think they knew exactly what they were doing when they were coming up with all of this. Because, you've heard, you know, the talks by, Simon Parks, right?
Right.
How this, you know, among all the things that are out there that are no good for humanity is the whole transhumanistic agenda. Well, isn't that a great way to prepare the population by getting them hooked on EMF? Because it's just like one step away from, you know, instead of holding onto the phone, holding onto the iPad, look, we can put your consciousness inside this body. It's like one step away from doing that.
Right. And remember I told you, I forgot what we were talking about. Oh, the astral projection thing. Because I had a few people come to me after, you know, saying that they're just automatically astral projecting and what can they do. And last week when I was speaking, there was a teenage boy there who said, "Will Shungite help you open your third eye?" And we were like, "Your third eye's fine, dude. Like, you're wide open. Your third eye and your crown, your heart is blocked and your sacral." But he's like, "Yeah, because I astral project." Like, they think this is so cool. They're literally being, abducted, and they want their third eye open even more, and they don't realize they're beaming out there already. This is where Shungite is so important, because it's going to ground you out and help you open up those blocked chakras, your heart and sacral. So now you can be a balanced individual and not be flying all over the place, because I know what it feels like. I've been there.
So you're thinking that he's being taken out of his body and taken someplace, or that he's just doing spontaneous remote viewing is what it is?
Both. I've had people.
So a spontaneous shamanic journey. I mean, you're going into, if you're out of body and you just slipped out of the body, your consciousness is out of phase. But if you're controlling it, you know where to go.
Right.
You're saying that he doesn't have any control over it. It's just all of a sudden.
I don't know if he had control, but the other girl I spoke to did not have control. And she said she's been doing this since she's been a little girl automatically, and she doesn't like it. She gets thrown into, like, she describes it as purgatory places where there's really grimy, dirty beings, and she doesn't know how to get out of it. So this is also happening. So,
so they just all of a sudden are in a different place.
Correct.
Without any knowledge that they're thought about it. You haven't studied it that much. You've just run into people
that are bringing these issues to the table. So it was like 3 in a week. So I started paying attention. What is going on with these people? But this is where they can program the Shungite before they go to sleep or whatever they're doing, for that not to happen, because it's a whole grounding thing.
Well, I still am having these things where, like, I'm laying down and, just thinking about things I may have to do, or, just playing games, and all of a sudden have an entire scenario going on with people I don't know, and it's just like, who the hell are these people? And I don't even remember what it was. I don't remember. I guess I don't want to remember the details, but it was not a very nice situation. And normally I just, as soon as I recognize that it's not my doing, it goes away. But this one wouldn't go away. And I actually got scared. And I said, Gaia. And as soon as I said the word, boom, gone.
Gone, yeah.
Gone. But it's still, because it doesn't happen all the time, but when it happens, it's like, boom, okay, I caught that one. That goes away. Then, a little bit later, boom, another one comes. It's almost like they've got my frequency tuned in.
Correct.
And they're sending these bizarre images. It's like little videos, like those GIF things that we see on Facebook.
Right, exactly.
That Jordan sends me. That type of thing.
Yep, it is.
And I, the last time it happened, and like I say, I don't know, that was the first time I was ever really scared, because I couldn't seem to clear it.
Mm-hmm.
And, but as soon as I said the word Gaia, boom, it was gone. She was right there, it was gone. And, my thought at that point was, I can see these things. I can feel that they're not mine. But how many people are walking around that get these things in their heads, and, they're not nice things. I mean, I don't see blood and gore, but it's like people in weird situations are doing weird things and drama all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, oh my God, how many people walk around with these things because they're really tuned in, that they get a whole series of this BS stuff that doesn't make any sense to them.
And at night they can't sleep. The minds are racing with these motion pictures in their head. We know. We all know what that feels like. And that's, going on 24/7.
And we can change the structure of the electromagnetic, but just in the same way that the phone works perfectly well, whether it's got Shungite on it or not, the actual ability for you to call actually is better, but we know it's better. You'll feel it's better, but there is no deterioration to the signal strength or the function of the signal. unfortunately, that also means it can carry these different crap things in it that are screwing with our minds, not so much our electromagnetic field anymore, but they're screwing with our minds.
Minds. It's one example of this was when I was in Long Island over the summer, and I was in the store food shopping at Trader Joe's, and as I'm going to pay, I got this fear of scarcity, fear programming going, you don't have enough money for this, steal it, take it. Like, I went into a panic over money. And I said, wait a minute, I caught it right away. I'm like, they're running a fear of scarcity programming here, and it happened in every single store. Every single one. I mean, you heard it, you felt the frequency. It was a total fear of scarcity, bringing that credit card out of that cash. You didn't have enough, you shouldn't be doing this. It was guilt, shame, all of it.
Wow.
I really had to work very hard there. There wasn't enough Shungite. It was a constant checking. Catch and release and checking, are these mine? Are these not mine? What's going on? Because you couldn't ground. You could not ground at all until I put the stickers in my shoes. Then I was able to start grounding. Yep.
Now, Walt, you tell a story about something to do with the credit card and how it's a programming thing. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Which one?
When you're using a credit card
that's not real money. That's not real money. I challenge anybody out there to go down to the liquor store or the gas station and buy a lottery ticket with your credit card. They'll laugh in your face.
Oh, yeah.
It's not real money. It's just the algorithm on the computer.
Right.
They let you make the purchase, right? But then you have to pay back with real money. That's why they call deadbeats people that pay off their credit cards at the end of the month when they have to pay the bill. Instead of sending the minimum payment, there are people that send whatever they purchased, and they hate those people because that's not how they make their money. They make their money from the minimum payments. And let's put it in another way. More proof that they don't use money, it's not real money, is that, and I've asked this of many people of different ages and different parts of the country, in all your years alive in the U.S., have you ever witnessed or seen on the newspaper, newscast, whatever, an announcement of a credit card company doing Chapter 11 or going bankrupt? The answer is no. They don't go bankrupt because they don't use real money.
Well, it's
signing. They get real money out of you, which is what they want.
It's the signature thing again. And Walt, you were the one that taught me that. We sign our life away constantly. Yeah. And how every time you sign, take all of your energy off of the document.
Yep.
And it's so true because they have you signing. Whereas money is a note. It's an energetic being. It wants to be prevalent in your life. That's why my daughter, she gets the money and she's playing with it. Can you feel the energy in this money, Mom? It's amazing. One time on the playground, this boy gave her a $1 bill and she got in the car. She's like, Mom, look at this gift he gave me. Do you feel the energy on this? And it's true.
Yeah.
We love cash. Cash is king.
Yeah.
Cash is king.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had to get over that because to me, it was every time you turned around, somebody was wanting more of this stupid stuff that doesn't mean anything except you think it does. And I had a real hang up. It was like, no, I don't want that stuff around me. It's all, but then somebody pointed out to me, it's just energy.
Right.
If you're getting a lot of money, if it's coming into you, it's flowing into you, it's because you're doing something right. You're acting in abundance. It's the reality. Reality's what you think it is. And so I love it when Jordan does, she'll send me a video and she's got all this money, this cash in her hand, and she just like throws it in the air and, yeah, go for it, girl.
I'm so grateful for money.
Yeah. And this is a girl, yeah. We're gonna take a break right now, but I just want to say this is a girl that gives away everything. We have to be careful because, one day they're at this expo, and Steph goes up to this other person's table, and there's a huge brick of Shungite, and she kind of like took a look at it, and you know, what and the woman said, "Oh, your daughter brought this to me. She gave it to me." And Steph said, "If my daughter gave it to you, it's yours." You know,
the most expensive brick we've ever had.
Just gives it away. You know. But she'll take off her stuff and give it to people. It's not like she's greedy at all. She just understands the energy.
Right. It's just, this is kids. They get it.
They get it. All right. It's the top of the hour, so we're going to take a break if Miss Colleen is ready.
I am ready.
Okay.
Ready.
And, Walt, I guess probably you gave her something, so I'll let you guys talk about that, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you.
Well, this is one that Walt sent me some time ago, and it's called My Love. Alrighty, and we are live again.
And we're back with the Cosmic Reality Radio Show. I do want to mention that this is a listener-supported endeavor. Your energy through your money is what keeps the stations going. You can go to Wolf Spirit Radio and you can donate, or you can become a member and therefore have access to the archives that go way, way back. Or you can donate on Haggy Shack, and that goes to Colleen's expenses. And it's not there's a lot of expenses to putting these shows together. None of us get anything except your goodwill, and we're so grateful for that. I've got Walt Silva, who's my co-host. Colleen's producing, and we have Stephanie Dietz, who's she's my partner our partner in the Shungite store, Cosmic Reality Shungite Inc. And we sort of went through Edgar. Now, we could have there's, tons of stuff on Edgar, and if you have not read some of the books, the biographies on him, he's really a fascinating story. As far as his prophecies go, there's been a lot of them most everything up until the Bimini, when he said that they'd see Atlantis. That was the last thing that I know of the prophecies. There's people out there saying he's got this, that, and the other thing, but, truly amazing in so many ways. Well, what would you like to talk about? Cause, we can go into something else. You got something that's been trending.
Did you run out of Cayce?
Well, it's like, if you know him, you know him, and if you don't, you should. My thing is there's so many, he also, the book that she was talking about angels, and, he believed in there was I don't know, because I looked at the wrong guy. Apparently there's some other guy that's written about angels and elementals and.
So it's not the video that you sent me?
No, that's not the same guy. I thought it was.
Guy.
It's a different guy.
Because this guy also speaks of the ARE, and he, according to him, he's been there 50 years.
Yep. And tell him the story about the brownies in the tree. Do you remember that?
Oh, it was a bush.
A bush, yes.
And, I guess based on his description of Brownie is something like a miniature elf, because he describes pointy shoes and pointy hats.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes. I didn't know they were real, but apparently they are.
Yeah. Well, he tells the story how a lady that was a member there who always did meditation daily, that she came out of where she was and she had to walk in front of this bush. And then all of a sudden, on every leaf there was a brownie standing there. And they told her that if you want to take a picture of us, we'll let you, take a portrait of us. So she went to, and the bush is also across the way from the window of the office where Edgar Cayce's son would sit. He gave the name, I forget the first name. So he came out.
I think it was Hugh. Hugh.
Yeah, he came out and he also saw them. But then one of the members there was a professional photographer, And when they told him what they were looking for a camera, what they wanted it for, he came out to photograph the bush, but he couldn't see anything. He could see the leaves moving in a way that it didn't account for any wind activity, but he couldn't see them. So then they explained to him that it was an issue of consciousness, that because of his level of consciousness, he could not perceive these beings. But then he used a Polaroid. He took a picture of the little bush, and then on the Polaroid you see the beings sitting on the leaves. But the one thing at the beginning, when the lady is asking him about the definitions of, what's the difference between fairies and elementals, I must say I don't fully agree with his definition of elementals, because he says that they're not beings, that elementals are referring to the elemental energies that make up reality. Like that's why you have the water element and the fire element and the, earth element, that they're not beings. And I'm thinking, I'm not 100% agreeable with that, with his assessment, because number one, in his writings, Castañeda, in one of the books, they openly discuss non-organic intelligences, which he had to contend with. And if these elementals are not beings, then how can we say that Shungite has sentience in it, and we interact with Shungite at a consciousness level? That wouldn't be possible if there's no beingness in there. So that was the only part of the video where I wasn't 100% agreeable with his definition of it. But everything else, he told the story of that angel on the road.
Yeah, the angel that got into his car. A hitchhiker got into his car, and it was late at night, and they're going through the desert, and he said, well, I'm only going up the road, and I'm going to be taking a right-hand turn. And the angel, or the hitchhiker said, well, you don't want to do that, because that goes through, what was the name of that?
The Wounded Knee Indian Reservation.
Yeah, Wounded Knee Reservation. And they don't take kindly to strangers at this late an hour. And so, but if you go up the road a little bit and you make the right-hand turn, and so he did, and the guy got out of the car, and when he looked up, he couldn't see the guy, and so he gets out of the car, and he can't see him anywhere. And he felt that he must have had a guardian angel that was keeping him from making a turn that could have gotten him in trouble, because he found out after the fact that 2 police officers had been shot at. Wasn't that what the story was? Hello? Are you muted? Are we up? Colleen?
Yeah, we're up.
Okay. Is Walt up?
It shows he is.
Huh.
Maybe he didn't make it back from the,
I was talking to him, that's why.
Sorry. The phone rang.
Huh?
Sorry, the phone rang.
Oh.
Did you hear it?
No. Didn't hear the phone ring. No. Yeah, that was an interesting story, but, there was 2 guys. That guy is not the guy that she went and saw. So apparently, cause I didn't remember when she was talking about, she asked me if I'd get the book out of Amazon, and I did it, and I'm going like, I don't remember anything about Cayce talking about spirits or angels or anything, but obviously I was wrong about that, because there's a lot of it around. And she also found, when she was at this thing, this meeting, they had different, like magazines and books, like, to talk about some of the books that were
old magazines. Like, this is from 1986. Is this the road to Atlantis? And they're showing you the actual map of Bimini.
Oh my.
This is like a treasure, an antique treasure.
Wow.
With everything. Did Atlanteans build the first Pentagon? And they're showing you everything. They even have the NASA satellite photos showing the mysterious geometric formations that are identified in the proximity of Bimini. So these were all these old books they had, all these magazines. This was all this sacred knowledge. I was just going crazy here.
But he
It's
also
amazing.
wrote things for religion, because he read the Bible, like, daily.
Oh, yeah.
And he was 14, he'd already read it a dozen times or something.
And right, and the other thing about that, they were talking a lot about this, is his references to the Keys of Enoch.
Oh, really? John Hurt textbook? Or just the Keys of Enoch?
Just about Edgar.
John never wrote until 72. Edgar would have been dead for 30 years.
I don't know. They kept mentioning that during the conference and talking about that and how Edgar, telling everybody to now read these Keys of Enoch.
Oh, maybe in channeling?
Mm-hmm.
No, we don't really trust channeling.
Right. I don't know. So it's very interesting, but yeah, he was a very religious man. And I got his Christian Bible.
Yeah, yeah.
What is that one? Edgar Cayce, the early Christian epoch, the Edgar Cayce readings, Jesus as seen through the life readings of his time, Christianity through the Essenes, through the growth of the early church. So the whole book was the Bible, I guess, in the ARE, but really talking and focusing on the Essenes.
And this is volume 6. We don't know
Right.
how many volumes are involved in this.
I saw this book and I grabbed it. I said, this is unbelievable. I mean.
So, anyway, Edgar Cayce. So, Walt, do you have anything that you want to talk about?
I don't know. Nothing comes to mind right now.
This is not
Well,
good.
one of the things that I can mention is earlier you were talking about getting those unwanted mental feeds of stuff like that.
Right.
All of the stuff stopped for me when Stephanie shared with me not a video but an audio clip. That's a YouTube audio clip, which is a fragment of one of Andrew Vartz's radio shows. And in it he was talking about how the system of domination and control, he says that it behooves them that you have your third eye open, because that's where they interfere with you. And he was describing a kind of etheric implant that affects people that if you look for it, there's nothing there. But it's designed in such a way because the thing just phases out of the local reality. But when you're very high, in a very good mood, loving mood, very high vibration, very high energy, this thing activates and it broadcasts into your third eye and it just brings you down. It makes you think of the most horrible thoughts, bad memories, bad thoughts, and you just fall into a funk. And then the thing just phases out again. So it only comes up whenever you're really good. And it was really timely that, Stephanie shared that with me because I was noticing something like that, a pattern like that in myself. So I dowsed with the pendulum. I asked if I did have such an etheric implant contamination, and I got yes. So I created 3 programs for my quantum key. The first one was to remove all consent to mind control technologies. The second one was complete shutdown and permanent removal of these things. And then the third one was for full protection of any of these things that could appear in the future. And from that moment on, it stopped. I don't have to listen to that endless noise of crap through my head all day. I can literally focus on what's in front of me. Because it's many times doing the work, I had to deal, I'm trying to focus on what I'm doing and there's all this crap going through my head. I would like to just turn it off. I guess I'm knock on wood. It is off. So thank you very much.
You just made a contract.
It's off. So.
No, when you knocked on wood, that's a contract.
Okay, so I've contracted that it's off. You can't publish.
Well, in my case, I didn't grab for a device. I just asked Gaia to come in.
Yeah.
And whether you believe you got spirit guides or angels or, you can talk to Gaia. Gaia will always talk to you. You just call in some super force. Let let the spirit guides help you too. Not saying that it's not good that we do it ourselves, but sometimes, just so you can understand that these things are out of your artificial. They're not yours. So when you're getting these bad thoughts, you can try to go through the concept of, doing your own energy work, but to be honest with you, I did not think energy. I thought Gaia. Help me.
Yeah.
And, again, it's a teaching tool. Yes, we can all do this, but until you can really believe it, until it's like second nature to you to turn these things off, which I honestly thought was. I thought I had gotten it down pretty good. But this one today, was it today or yesterday? It was like, it just didn't want to go away. And, boom, the first thing I thought of was, it's like people, they don't think of Jesus until they're in trouble. Jesus, help me! Well, I don't even know who the hell you are, lady.
Same with Gaia. And, she's such a powerful force. And it's true what you said, Nancy. You have to know what it feels like with her, because I'll get people all the time that come up to me when I'm out there, and the Shungite isn't catching their attention, but the name Gaia is.
Oh, really?
And they'll say, oh, wow, Gaia, that resonates with me. She came to me and saved my life in a meditation, or, they already understand what that force feels like. And I have a lot of people coming up to me like that, and I just honor that. They're like, Gaia, yes, that is.
I gotta be honest here, because, when Steph and I first got together and we started talking about, Shungite as a business, because we had to handle it that way if we were going to be able to get it to the masses, which is our mission. We had to do it from, making right business decisions. And, so I said to her, I'm thinking that maybe we should drop the Gaia connection, because I think that it probably in some people would be a bad connotation. And she said, absolutely not. Okay. All right. So we've gone with it, and now I can see that somehow I knew that when I got the word, it was not coming, I was not the source. I was pulling it in from something. It was already in the collective. Because it was I actually had to look up what the meaning was, because I wasn't even sure. So, your intuition to keep our affiliation with Gaia. I was looking at it as a business thing, but you were looking at it not only as a business thing, but as a metaphysical. And,
we work for her.
Yeah.
We work for Gaia, and we're here for her. What else is it? Yep. You wrote Cosmic Reality.
Yep.
For this. So, and another validation of that is when I had first met you, and a mutual friend of ours she knew about Gaia. She was being abducted in a dream, and she said, I called on Gaia. I don't know why. I don't know how. I called on Gaia, and from then on, that was it. So that was like a synchronicity for me before I met you in the Shungite, that she was already a consciousness and just coming to certain people.
Yeah.
And that was very profound, because you would call for Jesus, or you wouldn't call. She's like, I don't know why, I just call for Gaia. And that's what the people come and tell me. And I understand exactly what that feels like when they're sharing that experience with me.
Yeah, I think it's a power name for Mother Nature, the creative consciousness of the biosphere.
Well, you said that, they kept it away. They've changed the spelling. Mm. How many times do you see these things and they're spelling Gaia wrong? Or the best one is there's an actual EMF protection chip out there called the Gia chip, like one step away from Gaia. So it's all very interesting the way they have muddled and mucked with that name. To me, like I said, we're all Titans, Greek gods and goddesses, and we're working for Gaia.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. So, Walt.
What? But this is the Stephanie Dietz show. What do you want?
No. I want to know what you're the one that brought up the subject there.
Oh. Well, I had an interesting
Gaia show. That was
Gaia show.
Gaia coming in on that.
That's it. It's the Gaia show.
What to do with the projectors? That was all Gaia. projector goddess programming, Gaia. Right?
Right.
No, you can't say that over the radio. It's unethical.
Well, that's Gaia.
Mother Nature.
Well, I had an interesting experience with a lady with a contaminated crystal. And because the crystal was contaminated, she couldn't connect with her guides. She was...
What kind of a crystal? What was it? Quartz?
I don't know if it's supposed to be a secret, but in all the emails I've had with this lady, she doesn't describe, she just says crystal. So I'm assuming it's a quartz crystal. But that was one of her questions is, who am I talking to when I'm communicating through my crystal? So when I did the journey, it turns out that it was like a huge cloud of black smoke. You know, that sticky smoke that you see from, when tires are on fire? That black, thick, sticky type smoke.
Yeah.
And, what came out of that, it was strange because the entity kind of reminded me of, the old style, the ancient style Japanese theaters with all that heavy makeup and the costumes and everything. That's what the character kind of looked like, and it just kept going back and forth like a ballet, when a ballet dancer is leaping across the stage, they're doing those long steps. That's the way it would move, and it never stopped moving every time as it was talking. So, I realized that this is what was blocking, access to this lady's guides. So this thing asked if I was there to make a contract with it, and I said, no, I have an agreement with so-and-so to speak to her guides. So the thing kind of challenged me if I wanted to, several days before I did the journey, I think I had a realization about this issue of entities that, they become demons because they've lost their connection to source. That's, for those people that have read, Christ Consciousness by Norman Paulson, he describes the origin of all of these, dark negative entities is because they did something and they got disconnected from source and they went into a panic. So they figured that the only way to get back to source is to consume as much energy of others as possible. So that way you'll make a leap and go back into source. So then it hit me that I had a realization about that, and I'm thinking, well, if I ever come across a situation, I guess I'll try this, see if it works. So I guess, like I said to you before, everyone that's on the other side of the veil, they know what you've been thinking and they know what you've been doing. So that's what this entity said. Are you here to make, are you going to try your argument with me? And I said, well, if you're asking the question as you already know it. So I just said, do you have existence? And it goes, yes. I said, do you have consciousness? Yes. I said, well, it's your belief system that's keeping you in your state. And the entity goes, what beliefs is all I have? And I said, no. I said, belief system is it's like the magic wand that you use to create your particular reality. What came first, you or your belief? And the creature says, I did. I said, on the belief is a created thing. And since nothing can exist outside of source, because source encompasses everything, this means you have always and ever been connected to source. So as soon as I said that, there was like a flash of light, and the creature was like pushed back, and it was strange. There was no sound. It didn't make any sound, but it was pushed back and it disappeared. And finally all that dark smoke cleared up, and I was able to see this lady's guides. And they said that because the crystal was contaminated, this entity was using it to keep her away from her guides. He says it's not essentially demonic, but they're just invested in keeping people in the dark. Essentially what they were doing. So I guess I made it realize that it never was disconnected from source. That's how powerful belief systems are. We can convince ourselves the earth is flat. Sorry there. No offense. So these entities have convinced themselves, I mean, their belief system is so strong, they've convinced themselves that they're in the dark, that they're disconnected from source. And if you have existence and consciousness, guess what? You are connected to source, whether you're aware of it or not. So I guess that flash meant that it became aware. The important thing is that I got to the lady's guides and I was able to ask the questions that she wanted.
You know, that's a really profound concept, that we're all connected. I mean, you can kind of theoretically know it, but then to have that feeling of connectedness, it's not I think for some people it sort of comes on them all of a sudden and they go, oh, I get it. You know, but for the vast majority, I think you get it in pieces. You know, would you say that? You know, that you learn, that it's a learning thing. And what kind of learning is it? It's paying attention to the details, especially synchronicity. And Cayce was one of those people that saw synchronicity in circumstances being, you know, divinely inspired in some way.
Oh, the guides are expert at that. That's like, Dr. Costa gives a perfect example of that, where he says, for example, let's take, we have this young man, he's working in an office, and you have this young man has a guide, and the two guides are standing, you know, close to each other, and one asks the other, oh, how are you? How is your person doing? Oh, he's okay, but he needs a girl in his life. And what about yours? And the other guy is taking care of a girl. And, oh yeah, she's doing okay with her life and her work, but she really needs a man in her life. So what they do is each of them inspires their own person with the thought that, you know, we need more potassium. You know, we should get a banana. So the two of them, they work in an office building. They go down to the fruit vendor to get a banana, and they end up meeting. He says that happens all the time, everywhere. Guides will orchestrate your synchronicities in order to point you in the right direction. And people don't realize that they can do that they can ask their guides. So that's, on many journeys, that's what I end up, when people write to me saying, oh, I think I'm spinning my wheels, I don't know which way to go. And I just ask formally, you know, manage the person's synchronicity so that you'll point her or him in the right direction. And so far the people report back. I tell them, keep your eyes open, look for sounds, smells, colors, pictures, animals, whatever catches your attention and you see it repeating itself. You know, that's a sign that they're giving you. It's like putting crumbs, following a trail of crumbs in the forest, something like that. And they write back and they say that, yeah, they've been paying attention and they can see the synchronicities, things, numbers repeating themselves or colors repeating themselves, and it gives them ideas what to do or where to go. It's just that, like you said, pay attention.
Well, you know, I say it sort of like, oh, pay attention to the details, but that's not the easiest thing in the world because your head's so full of all this other crap.
Yeah, you know, you're paying attention to the noise, not to the
right. I mean, the concept of smelling a rose is a very, very profound concept. Take the time to smell the rose, which reminds me, I haven't smelled the my gardenia bushes in bloom. I'll take you out there. Yeah, but it's not the easiest thing to pay attention to the details, but give yourself permission. You know, we're continually making ourselves we should be the center of our universe. So when something comes up, I mean, how many times in your life have you not heard a word ever, and all of a sudden in the same week you hear it 3 or 4 times?
Right.
Yeah. You know? There you have. That's a good example.
Pay attention. What is that word? What does it mean to you? Why is it being brought into your life? You know, these are clues for you. It's not just some random chance that could have happened to anybody. These are orchestrated clues to tell you something. When the book falls off right off the what do you call it? The bookcase in a shop, you know, Dolly knows that's the book I'm supposed to read. Mm-hmm. She doesn't question it. You know, she might go, ooh, I don't know if I want to read this, but she, you know, somebody is saying you need to read this book out loud. And, you know, that's how she normally ends up with a book. Somebody will recommend it, maybe, but a lot of times it falls off the shelf.
They can make the phone ring. They can make the phone ring. I mean, that's for people that have shared hotel rooms with Dr. Costa, always between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. is when his guys need him to wake up and do some work. You know, well, he'll go off and do some work somewhere in the world. I guess it's like a shamanic journey type of deal. But, they all attest to the fact that it's sometime between 4 and 5 a.m. The phone in the hotel room rings. You go pick it up and there's nobody there. They're making the phone ring so he'll get up because he's got some work to do. So they can do that.
And they do it.
And just ask them, like we talked about in the conference, you know, we have free will, but angels don't. And our guides, they're here to serve us and to help us. So just ask. That's
the problem. People forget to ask. Or they think that it's wrong, or maybe I don't deserve to ask. You know, I've been a bad boy. Maybe I don't deserve their help, or I shouldn't be asking. Or maybe they're busy painting their house and here I'm bothering them.
No, they love to be asked.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing that I explain to people every time when they give me questions. And they say, oh, did they say something else about this? And I explain to them. They don't talk like a human being where a human likes to gossip. Like somebody will say to you, oh, what a great pair of shoes. The question is, where did you buy it? And then chances are the person will say, oh, you like them? They only cost me $20. And the other day, Martha was telling me about this. And the answer becomes this long story, which is, you know, it's our human nature to be that way. But that's not the way the guides work. They answer the question because if they elaborate on a question, they're interfering with your free will process. Because now they're giving you this whole story, they're giving you this whole context, and it's going to change the way you're thinking and evaluating something. So when you ask a question, they have to answer the question, period. And that's why you have to be smart. And when I would do that 50-step process with people, and I'm guiding them, and I'm having them ask questions of the guide, and the person tells me, oh, they're saying such and such a thing. Okay, I have to be one step ahead and think, okay, where will this take me? So I say, okay, now ask them this. So the answers become a trail of crumbs for me to follow to get to the root of the problem. You know, where is this coming from? Why is this being affected? Like I got so used to, when dealing with people issues, either a life circumstance or a physical ailment was because of something that happened in the past in another life. So I got used to that. So it took me for a loop when I found a subject where the problem was coming from the future. This person had an implant in their arm and it was put there in the year 2026. What do you do with that? When you have the person...
Explain that? Now expand on that story.
Well, that's what happened. This is an unusual gentleman. He's like a walking Star Trek tricorder. I mean, I'm sorry, Stephanie, no offense, but he puts you to shame. You know, you think you're energy sensitive? This man is turned on full blast 24/7. I mean, he can sense stuff that's not even in the same room. That's how sensitive he is. And to make matters worse, he's working in a hospital, so he has to pick up all this energy from patients and visitors and whatnot. But it would take forever for me to get him to get him into the trance state because mentally he's so hyper. So I forget what it was, if it was some kind of pain or something was affecting him when he was doing the work, and it was in his left wrist. So I'm asking questions. Is this from the past? No. Is this physical? No. Is it energetic? Yes. And I'm going through the list in my head of what could it possibly be. Is it an etheric parasite? No. Is it an artificial implant? Yes. Okay. What life did this come from? And he says, I don't understand the answer. So I said, ask your guides to give you, because sometimes they don't understand if it's a past life. So I said, okay, ask them to give you a year. When did this happen? They're telling me 2026. So he was suffering an etheric implant that had been put in his body in 2026. So yeah, they were able, because we were asking, they were able to address it and they were able to remove it. But that threw me for a loop. I never come across something of that sort.
So do you have any explanation as to who put that there in the future?
I did not ask. At the time, I just wanted to help the person. So I didn't ask why what was put there. And I have come across situations, his case in particular, in the time that I knew him, we had 3 different sessions. And he needed to learn, progress, and acclimate between sessions because certain questions that they refused to answer in the first session because he wasn't ready to process the answer were answered in the second session. There was a 6 months gap between the 2 sessions. So that's another thing regarding the guys. Just because they're there, and yes, you can ask them questions, does not necessarily mean that they will answer every single thing you ask, because they're looking out for your well-being, all of your well-being, physical, mental, spiritual. And if you're not ready to hear the answer to something, then they won't answer it because they know it's going to hurt you or affect you negatively. So at the end of it, it's quite a wrangling show to be able to, you're minding the subject, he's got to stay under, and then you have to think questions. So you have to be a multitasker when you're doing that.
Well, yeah, the key is knowing how to ask a question. I've been in situations where, I kept asking questions and I would get kind of mumbling, for lack of another thing, but it wasn't like, it was almost like I asked a question that they didn't want to answer, so they'd sort of like throw something back that was almost a question back at me. But when I finally got the right way of phrasing it, boom, the answer's there.
Yep.
It's like.
That's when you find out that asking questions is an art form.
It is. And, the basics thing is keep it simple.
Yeah.
Because if you don't keep it general and you don't keep it simple, your own mind begins to project all these different possibilities.
Yeah, you're trying to fill in the gaps yourself as opposed to asking the right question.
Right. So, it's fascinating, but you will get the answers, but again, it's paying attention to the details because sometimes the answers are subtle.
Yeah.
It really is.
Or sometimes they hit you over the head with a flower pot.
That's true too. Yep. Okay.
So what's the next show scheduled for Stephanie? Shungite show.
What do you got up next?
I don't have anything, but Saturday night I'll be on with Emily Norcross.
All right.
Talking about the Indigos. She invited me to be on her guest, to talk about being an Indigo and parenting one of these new rainbow children. So we'll be discussing that. And interestingly enough, at the Edgar Cayce conference, I found all these old magazines from the 80s, 90s, early 2000s talking about these new waves of children and how Edgar said that the new 5th root race would be coming, and these are the indigo and then the rainbow children. So I'll be referencing a lot of that information, which is just completely fascinating because, being a child of the 80s myself, that's when I think it all started really coming out. These kids were different. We can't control them in school. We can't medicate them.
Well, Cayce.
You just said the magic word, control.
Right, you can't control us. But it also came with a lot of anger. One of the articles talks about how all of the school shooters and all that kind of stuff were all indigo kids because of their anger. But what they didn't state was that every single one of them were on
Prozac.
on Adderall, Prozac, or one of those drugs. And that's when all the experimentation started, in the 80s, because we weren't conforming to their systems.
One of the things I wanted to say is it's really good that you pointed that out when you said the thing about the drug, because not too long ago I saw that film that's based on a true story, The Haunting of Emily Rose, which is based on a true story about this girl that died who supposedly was possessed. And what's really interesting about the case is what one of the people that testified in court, because the case went to court because the priest was put on trial, the one that was dealing with her case.
Now, wait, let's get the background on the case. How old the girl?
I think the girl was of college age, so she must have been early 20s.
Okay, so she was possessed, and was there an exorcism being attempted?
The priest that was put on trial was the one who was given the case to investigate, because she would, it was more than one entity that she, would report every time she would go into one of these episodes. It wasn't always the same entity. But the part that got my attention in the film is that they had an Indian lady doctor who testified, who had experience. She was a medical doctor, plus she had experiences of these possessions back in India. But she said something really, really really critical, which ties into what Stephanie just said about the shooter being on some kind of drug. That she said that if the girl had not been medicated, if she had not been given the whole prescriptions that she was given, she would have survived. The problem was that because she was so heavily medicated, she could not protect herself. She could not access the power of her body in order to protect herself. So she was left unprotected. She was made vulnerable. It's like, when you're drunk and you can't even walk down the street, or you can't put the key into the keyhole. You've lost now your motor control. Something of that nature, but, at a mental, spiritual level. So she said if she had not been drugged, she would have, survived what she went through. But because of the heavy drugging that she was subjected to, because they thought the whole thing was a psychological, medical science, psychological things, that's why she died. So that was a really, important thing, is that why the pharmacological industry is so invested in keeping people drugged, especially the kids. Because if they're drugged, they're easy to control, they're easy to infiltrate, easy to manipulate, easy for everything.
So now imagine this. We didn't have the computers and the Wi-Fi and the stuff. We just had the drug. Now they have that as the control mechanism with the drug. So they're complete zombies, because at least we could kind of hijack it, because we didn't have the EMF. We were out there running in the streets.
Yeah.
Now it's different. So that's the form of control that you're talking about. But I want you to understand that psychosis is the same thing that this generation of rainbow children and the new kids are going through it now. They don't even have to drug them. They're just, on
Wi-Fi them.
Just Wi-Fi them.
Irradiate them all day like potatoes.
It's that simple. It's mass psychosis now.
No,
amnesia.
Let me go back to Edgar for a second. He calls it the fifth what?
Fifth root race.
Fifth root race. All right. Now, weird enough, when I was looking at some of this information earlier, there was a YouTube on Edgar's talking about the pyramids, and I had done quite a research of one of the original books written on the Great Pyramid by a guy by the name of Smith, and he proved, at least to me, that based on the structure of the inside of the pyramid, that you could trace back the history of mankind. And it was very convoluted and very detailed, and it goes all the way from the entrance all the way up the grand gallery. and then into the queen's room and then the king's room, you know. And, well, what I did not know, because I didn't see it, and neither did this guy Smith. When you get into the king's room, you're still following history. There was markers, the plague, the Egyptians getting thrown out, the Jews getting thrown out of Egypt. Every major thing through history was somehow marked within the structure of the inside of the pyramid until it got to the king's chamber. And then they could see this mark for World War I and then World War II. And then they just said, well, gosh, about 2012, everything's going to be ended because there's no more structure, And then one guy realized, well, no, there is if you go up now, And so they showed a picture of the grand chamber of the king. And in fact, the structure goes up and the actual date, and they were talking about the fifth root race. That the fifth root race comes about in 2034.
Wow.
And what that means, best as I was able to understand, is that that's when human beings really kind of separate into the human who stays the animal thing, and the human being who has integrated the animal and the higher self to become, this much more elaborate being, for lack of another word.
Like an avatar is what I think. That fifth root, they call them the blue people, It's just, just gonna be amazing.
Yeah, so that's not that far off.
No.
Even in Edgar's.
No. It's happening now.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Russia, the hope of the world. It's all playing out.
I know,
That's why I just love it when I saw, Edgar, Cayce, Rudolf Steiner, and Buckminster Fuller, because they're all tied in together in these works, and, they all started the Unity Church. And we were talking about this during the conference. I'm like, they're all here. They laid the foundation, and the work, it's all being played out in front of them with the Waldorf schools, the Shungite, all of it is tied in. All three of them. All of their works.
And the internet's going to be part of it.
Of course. That's what they're doing. And I see my daughter, on the internet, and how she's actually running energy and, what she's doing on there is so amazing. I can't even put it into words, but she will one day. We'll have her on. But the kids, were brilliant. And that is what that Indigo article actually talks about. How us children were going to change technology like you've never seen anything like it. They couldn't even describe it. But this is why now. Now I got it and understood why.
Yeah, because the technology is controlling us. But they built us a nice system to turn around and use.
Correct.
And that's the key. So she's going to be on Saturday nights at 8:00. Crosser's Creek with Emily Norcross, and that this coming Saturday. You're going to have that show. That should be fun. And tomorrow on World Talk, we're going to have Nora Willow's going to be back. She's in Qatar right now. She's going to be moving to Italy, and she's a lot of fun. We always have a really informative time with her. So have you had any more shamanic journeys there, Walt, that have, given you some more insight?
Yeah. But, I mentioned that one because it's the most significant. The others are more, the questions are more of a personal nature for the person. So that's why I can't share that stuff.
Okay, but is there been anything else that has a generality that, something that you took away that you went, oh, that would work for most everybody? No, huh?
Any magical stories with Shungite?
Magical stories with Shungite. Well, it was interesting that, the same person's guides said that she should get used to commanding her crystals, programming them with intention, not just using them because they're crystals. So I gave her the rose technique for purifying her crystal, because she did attach a piece of, I guess she glued it, a piece of shungite to the crystal to keep it clear, but this entity was resisting it. It had consciousness. So, and since it was not inside the crystal, it was using the crystal as a portal. It just kept its distance, but it was able to resist it. So I told her to use the rose technique. I said, because I think given the magnitude of, how intelligent this entity was, it would have resisted salt water, I think, even if you put the crystal in salt water. That's one of the things that Barsis speaks about, is that even though we're used to these simple methods of clearing, there are entities smart enough and strong enough that they'll resist them. So you have to get smarter than them.
So what happened after she put the shungite on the crystal?
It didn't clear it. So I had to, because I doused it after the shamanic journey, and yeah, this thing was actually resisting the shungite. And she wasn't, and she just glued it on. She did not, we're used to, kind of linking with our shungite and asking it to do stuff. She didn't do any of that. She just glued a piece of shungite to the crystal. So this thing was actively resisting it. It was still affecting her.
Well, those entity things, they do seem to be cropping up all over the place, and I just don't know what to think of them.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of baffled by the whole.
I think they're coming up to be released, like this one.
This may be true.
Yeah, we've learned what we learned, and then, okay, let's share what we learned. Well, guess what? You're not disconnected from source. Go back home. Because that's what this whole torture has been about. I mean, on the 3D level, you have on the 3D level the fight. You have this fight for money and power, right? Then you go up to the 4D level and you have these old reptilian creatures, what is their fight? Their fighting is for human consciousness, to keep them at a certain level so that they're nice and manageable. And then you go up another level, and the ultimate fight is to get back to source. So these guys have created a belief system where they believe they're disconnected from source, and they just want to suck up life force energy wherever they can get it. Because that's their primitive reasoning. If I get more energy, I'll be able to make it to the top of the pyramid, and then I'll be able to go back to source. And guess what? Nothing exists outside of source. You just convinced yourself that you're disconnected. So therefore you are. Wake up to that fact, and guess what? You're free. You're home. And look at the situations that we've encountered when we were helping Jack. You had these entities that all they wanted to do was go back home. They didn't have that much of an investment, torturing him. They were just looking for a place where somebody with some knowledge and power would be able to help you move on. Because essentially that's the end of it. They don't gain. What do they gain by torturing this poor creature? Nothing. But they could get the attention of someone who can do something for me. What do you want? I want to go back home. Okay, here you go. Here's your portal. Take it. It'll take you to your right and proper place, and, have a nice time. And you've come across that as well, with your Shungite bed.
Well, maybe we should just tell these people, that they should, just open up a door, tell them there's source, we put a neon sign over it, source gateway.
Yeah.
Gateway.
Well, it's simple logic. I mean, if you feel ill, what do? Well, you go to your chiropractor, you go to your doctor, right? You're not going to go look for another person that's as sick as you, right? Because they're not going to help you. They're just sick as you. Well, if you put yourself in the shoes of these entities, I'm not defending what they do, but if you're steeped in the middle of the dark and you're surrounded by other dark folks that are not giving you any help, who are you going to nag? Well, I'm going to go bother that guy who seems to be working with light energy. Maybe he can help me get the hell out of here. So you get people invested with it, like the ones I encountered in New York. They actually want to feel bad. They actually want to have problems in their lives because, like these Rama group, that supposedly contact, UFO occupants. They would tell you these horrible stories. Yeah, I had an accident and I lost my leg and I lost my wife and I lost all these horrible drama stories that they were going through all this in life, but they were happy about it because this means the dark forces are attacking me because I'm progressing. So they were actually welcoming horrors and drama into their lives because that was their reasoning. Oh, the dark ones are attacking me because I'm doing something good, because I'm actually progressing. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like people don't think that they're worth anything unless they're being attacked.
Right.
Yeah. I must be important, right? Because I'm getting the attention of somebody.
Thank God I'm not important. Except I get these, like I say, these weird programming things that I'm sure they just feel like they're coming in on electromagnetic. So even though I have like a huge amount of Shungite, that's not going to keep those thoughts out of your head. You've got to be, but it will help you recognize them. You'll go, that's not mine, and then, my thing is that try to basically say that's not mine. And normally if you recognize that it's not yours, it dissipates. It just,
well, you're manifesting the power of choice.
Yeah.
Whatever is coming up to you, number one, you're not making the mistake of thinking, oh, this is mine, I gotta process it. No. You're looking at it and, okay, I'm making a choice. I don't want it.
Yep.
Go away. Or
if it doesn't go away, you can call on Gaia or your spirit guides. But
there's another choice.
Just realize that 99% of the stuff that doesn't feel right is not right. It's not yours.
It's
and
not
we got
yours.
to end the show. It's 9:00. I just looked and I realized. Colleen, what Haggy Reads for You is coming up next, yes?
Let me see. Next is a replay of World Talk with Friends.
Oh, I forgot we had a schedule thing. Oh, yeah. Okay. And interestingly enough, that's by, a guy by the name of Neil, and it's Bangladesh. And it was very, very interesting. So, that is a good show to go. And tomorrow we're going to have, World Talk on with, our friend Nora Willows. We never know what we're going to talk about there. And then Saturday we've got, Dr. Rita, do you remember her last name?
No, I don't. Dr.
Okay,
Rita.
she's really important. She's so important that Dolly booked her and was surprised that she agreed to come on the show. And then I said, well, instead of hijacking her, during the show, we'll just, go and hijack her beforehand. So she's agreed to be on both shows. And we always have a good time on Saturday. So, feel free to join us. And, Friday, there's always a good lineup. So, I thank you all for listening. Thanks, Beth, for stopping by.
Thank you so much, everybody. And please check out www.cosmicreality.net for all of your Shungite needs. And Walt's website, newparadigmtools.net.
Newparadigmtools.net. But you can just click on a button on our page, because it's his website too. It's just, he also has his own, and he does Shamanic Journey, and he is a computer expert. If you do need computer help, trust me, you need it. He's very reasonable, and we actually have him on a monthly, setup so that he comes in weekly, cleans up the computer, and if something happens, we know who to call.
And thank you so much, Colleen, Haggy Shack Radio.
Yeah, Haggy Shack Radio.
Thank you, Colleen.
Together.
Yes, it's quite a roller coaster.
And thanks to the audience for being with us tonight.
And we do thank you all. Yep. And Colleen, it's all yours, darling.
Alrighty, thank you.
Thank you.
Great show tonight, guys.
Good night, honey. Be
Good
safe.
night.
Several federal gatherings make it ring in my ears, bring me tears over the years. People start believing, achieving, feeding the whole land in the end. The pretenders pretend and warriors feel sorry. Preaching, preaching, the unknown, unknown, unknown.
Welcome to World Talk